Hello, and welcome to The Explainer. Today, we are diving into a massive question. When the most powerful institution in the country gets something wrong, what can you do about it? How do you actually hold the government accountable? Let's get into it.
Just think about it for a second. The government makes decisions every single day that directly impact our lives. Everything from planning permits to who gets a business license. They wield powers that you and I just don't have. So what happens when they mess up? What's the system that ensures all that power is used for the public good and not, unfairly against an individual?
And this brings us right to the heart of the matter, what you could call the power paradox. It's this fundamental tension in any modern country. On the one hand, we need a government that's strong enough to actually run things, provide services, and keep order. But on the other, that very same power creates a huge risk for citizens.
Now, the key thing to remember is that the government doesn't just have power out of nowhere. It's power that's been given to it by law, usually by Parliament. And that's where administrative law comes in. It's basically the rule book for walking this tightrope, making sure the government stays within its legal limits and doesn't end up using its power unfairly at your expense.
So how should the law even think about this problem? Well, for a long time, legal thinkers have basically been split between two big ideas, and we can use a simple traffic light analogy to understand them.
So on one side, you've got the red light theory. This view sees the law's main job as being a stop sign. It's there to hit the brakes on the government when it goes too far, to protect our individual freedoms, with the courts acting as the ultimate umpire. Then you've got the green light theory. This sees the law as more of an engine, or an accelerator. Its role is to help the government get on with its job for the benefit of everyone, trusting the political process, elections and so on, to hold it accountable.
Of course, in the real world, it's not that black and white. Most modern legal systems really run on what you could call an amber light theory. It's a much more practical middle ground. It recognizes that, we need both. We need to facilitate good government, but we also need to control bad government. Sometimes you need the courts to come in and fight fires, but you also need other ways to just watch for sparks.
Okay, so let's get practical. Let's say you genuinely believe a public body, a local council, a government department, has made a decision that's unlawful or unfair to you. What's in your toolkit? Well, your main legal weapon is something called judicial review.
Now, the entire idea of judicial review is built on one simple concept, and it has a fancy Latin name, ultra vires. It sounds complicated, but all it means is beyond your powers. See, the court's job isn't to step in and make the decision itself. Its job is just to check whether the government body stayed within the legal lines that Parliament drew for it. If it stepped over those lines, it acted ultra vires, and that's when a court can get involved.
So what does beyond your powers actually look like in practice? Well, there are three main arguments you can make. The first one is illegality. Did the decision maker just get the law wrong? Did they misunderstand their powers? The second is irrationality. Was the decision so completely off-the-wall absurd that no sensible person could have possibly made it? And the third is procedural impropriety. Was the whole process unfair? Maybe they were biased, or maybe you never even got a chance to tell your side of the story.
Now, this next point is absolutely crucial, and it's something that trips a lot of people up. It's the difference between a judicial review and an appeal. They are not the same thing. Not at all.
Here's the key difference. An appeal is all about the merits of a decision. It asks, was this the right call? And if the appeal court says no, it can just swap in its own better decision. But a review is only about the legality. It asks, was this decision made lawfully? The court is like a supervisor checking the process, not the outcome. A judge might personally think it was a terrible decision, but if it was made legally, they can't touch it.
And just to give you a taste of how high the bar for irrationality really is, listen to this classic legal definition. A decision has to be so outrageous in its defiance of logic or of accepted moral standards that no sensible person who had applied his mind to the question could have arrived at it. That's an incredibly high standard to meet. It shows you just how careful courts are not to overstep their own role. Their job is to police legality, not to run the country.
But look, judicial review is only one tool in the box. And let's be honest, it can be really slow, it can be incredibly expensive, and the legal hurdles, as we've just seen, are sky high.
So thankfully, there's a whole other ecosystem of checks and balances that are designed to be a lot more accessible for the average person.
You've got things like specialist tribunals, which often can look at the merits of a case. Think of things like Social Security or immigration appeals. Then you have ombudsmen. Their job is to investigate complaints about what's called maladministration. Things like ridiculous delays, bad service, or just plain old unfairness. You've also got public inquiries to dig deep into major public disasters or scandals. And in some places, like in Nepal, you have powerful independent bodies like the CIAA, which specifically targets corruption and the abuse of authority.
And this quote, this really just nails why these other bodies are so critical. The Ombudsman was created to provide a new equity, a new kind of fairness, precisely because the old-school court system wasn't always giving people the protection they needed for these everyday problems. They really are crucial.
Which really brings us to the big takeaway here. The question of how we control government power? Well, it doesn't have a final, neat and tidy answer. It's a constant negotiation that sits right at the very heart of what it means to live in a democracy.
This balance of power is never set in stone. It's always shifting. What one generation considers to be necessary government action, the next might see as a massive overreach. And what one side sees as proper judicial oversight, the other might call undemocratic meddling by judges. It's a constant debate.
And there's a very powerful argument, captured perfectly by this quote from Lord Sumption, that reminds us of the limits. The idea is that judgments about policy, about what the government should do, are political questions. And in a democracy, those questions should be answered by the people we elect, the people who are actually answerable to us at the ballot box, not by unelected judges.
So we end up right back where we started, with this huge, fundamental question. As government gets more and more complex and involved in every aspect of our lives, that tension between the green light need for an efficient state and the red light demand for a fair one just gets more intense. And figuring out where to draw that line, well, that isn't just a job for lawyers. It's a challenge for all of us.